what actually our ancient system provided and what today will lack. I'm not saying that there was no excellence in the Western countries, but the excellence they have a Leonardo, they have a Picasso, whoever it was. But excellence in the West was in spite of their systems. It was an occasional, random excellence, whereas we have systematized excellence. So here excellence comes naturally because you have had hands-on experience with the work you do. By the age of 20, you start pursuing something to create greater in your own field, get acknowledged by the own people. So the genius has come up and there is ample scope for that to come up. Whereas in the West, it was in spite of the systems they had in place, not because of the systems they had in place. So this distinction between...
Beautiful. Beautifully put. Really beautifully put. Once again, I'm joining so many dots. I was trying to write this and I will read this out to you. In trying to do a project with Dr. J.K. Bajaj, who's done one of the most important work on demographics in the country and how change has been happening in district-wise and all. So at Sario, we are trying to do some data project with him to take forward his work, for which it seems there is no Uttaradhikari, a brilliant work. So I just met him 2-3 weeks back, and in a conversation, I mentioned to him that there is just too much mediocrity everywhere, sir. And he started laughing, and he says that his real problem with secularism is not about Hindutva or Hindu Rashtra or none of this. His real problem is, and these are his words, and I paraphrase actually. My biggest problem with secularism is that it does not allow us to teach our people about the greatness of the civilization we had, and therefore does not allow for giving its current people a purpose for rebuilding it. With no such grand purpose, India has been reduced to mediocrity. Beautifully put, right?
Nicely put.
And he talks about a person, a philosopher called Ferdinand Braudel, who does a comparison between China and India. A French philosopher, Braudel. And it seems, I couldn't find this piece of reference, but he was quoting him. And once again, I'll have to paraphrase, that it seems that Ferdinand, this Braudel, talks about that China, it seems, he says that why did China progress and why has India been left to the economic mess it is in, is because the Chinese were able to put up posters in their factories that we will do the work of 10 years in 1 year to rebuild the China of yore. And the elite of China had a clear sense of purpose of rebuilding the civilization. And compared to them, India has no such purpose. This is Braudel talking about in his book on civilization.
The last sentence is very, very important when he said the elite of the China were hell bent on rebuilding their civilization, whereas we were busy copying or aping the other civilizations. And today, you see this paradox, Rahul. Just imagine, I'm just carrying on from where I left about this independence and job security. See, today, in the name of pursuing education and making education compulsory for every child, okay, so our education lasts till the age of 21. By the time one completes master, the most fruitful years he has been parasite on the society. Are we ever understanding it? He is not contributing anything. Even in the true terms of productivity, he is not contributing anything. So this was definitely never the case with our systems. The learning happens and earning also happens and contributing also happens.
And we brought child labor laws to ensure that nobody can learn at home, completely took away apprenticeship.
Shall I give a strange example?
Yes.
We had an area called Champapet in Hyderabad where a guy was puncturing. He is doing some repair shop में काम करता था. So as a part of our Make Every Child Educated as a literacy program, some people brought him to the school and we witnessed his life story in front of our eyes. Okay, so he was forced to study. He completed his 10th class. He failed in intermediate. After spending 8 years in education school, he again went back to the same repair shop where he started off. Where I'm not saying you should not educate them, But what is this compulsory education, modern education program? क्या करना चाहता है? And you give him an engineering degree and then make him unemployed. You pick up an employee who is employed, teach him, educate him, make him graduate, and make him an unemployed. So the kind of cycle we are going through is definitely not the ideal situation for any society to become prosperous.
And I guess you may, in this whole idea, you may not have all the answers yet, but that is the whole journey of Dharmarajya, of creating alternate answers, of a nation state which defines itself.
Sure, there are not ready-made answers. But what we do have today is wonderful models. Let me put it this way, it is not that we are not even a functioning economy, we are a functioning economy. We are doing well in we are the only country who withstood the deadliest of recessions in the recent past. Isn't it the case?
Yeah.
And if you observe, look at, I'll go back there, how we dealt with manpower. There is another problem in economics, how to deal with capital, how to form it. Capital formation is a big challenge. Now, let's consider this case. 2008-2009, there was a global recession.
Yeah, which is the East Asian
Anglo-Axon. No, that is 98-99.
98, sorry.
2008 is this US-led recession.
Before the,
Okay, mortgage.
before 9/11.
9. Then 2009 guy. So even all the European countries started blaming UK and US. In spite of following their models, it is your own recession which you exported or imposed on the rest of the world. And there were 3 countries which were least affected by this recession. One was Japan, one was Germany, the other is India. And why? As Milton Friedman said, let the free markets operate. Somehow, though the free markets operate in Japan and Germany, complete free market economy, their capital formation system is that most of their businesses are funded not by the stock markets but by the banks. So these 2 countries are bank-driven economies, whereas the rest of the Europe and US is a stock market-driven economy. Why I'm making this point is, so bank-led economies somehow could resist the onslaught. Then there is Bharat. What are we? We believe that we are predominantly bank-led economy, where entrepreneurs get their funding from the banks, not through the stock markets, because stock markets are not so evolved in this country. Only 2 to 3% of household savings find their way to stock markets. But it is not even the case. Only our bank bank loans to GDP ratio is around only 37%, whereas it's 150% in China, 100% in Japan. Then how could we manage our capital? It is the local people, जैसे रहते हैं चिट फंड चलाने वाले, रोज इंटरेस्ट पे देने वाले, completely informal economy. An average entrepreneur in this land, even today, does not depend much for his resources on the bank or on the stock markets. जो goodwill रहता है, and an informal economy that emerged out of this. So capital formation happens naturally within the society if you leave that society as it is. If you try to, of course, I was a big fan of demonetization, but later the results of demonetization, as we started analyzing, we are moving towards a direction where we are trying to formalize the entire economy.
Yeah.
Maybe a fruit vendor tomorrow may not have access to the kind of loan he used to get earlier at a throwaway call. So by institutionalizing, by
even if the interest rate was higher.
Even if the interest rate is higher, he could run his show and he could repay his money immediately.
Yeah, but the people keep saying that is exploitation because you have to pay much more rates and all of that business. But at the same time, I know of organizations like Rangde, which work in the social sector, NBFCs as non-banking financial corporations, who give micro loans. And also Bandhan Bank started like that, just 5,000 rupees.
Yeah, the kind of measures also being made.
But their interest rates are 24%, 26%. But so I was like shocked. I thought you're like the village baniya who's exploiting. But they said no, that's not the way to look at it. Imagine they take 5,000 rupees. They're only giving back 50 rupees per month in interest. That they're easily able to pay back.
Exactly. And they are getting the capital when they needed it the most.
Yes.
If you have this red tapeism, approach a bank and he asks you so many questions, by the time you get your loan back, the business is lost.
Yeah.
So it is always a trade-off. But the way we form our capital, and one more capital. Today, the entire world is talking about MSC,
Sorry, now I'm
multi-social
saying
capital.
that they will now have to, what we are creating is an alternative Banya of the village Banya in a centralized India-wide organization called Rangde, or 10, maybe there are 10 more of them, but by killing the informal economy, you've taken the village funder, whoever funds out of the network.
Exactly. Either you are bringing them into the formal economy, and so that he cannot lend as he once used to.
Because now you have to have NBFC and all of this
Exactly.
nonsense on top.
So this is how capital is managed in this country. Every aspect of economy was properly managed in a Dharma Rajya.
It's almost like saying that it's almost like creating high courts and supreme courts. Instead of justice delivery at the local level, now you're doing exactly for capital access also.
Exactly. You're delaying the process, you are making it more cumbersome so that he doesn't even pursue setting up a business.
I never looked at it like that. This is not the story which is ever told to us. The story that's only told to us all the time is of exploitation and all of this, right? In all Hindi films from the
That is the reason
70s,
why I
80s.
repeatedly use the word Dharmik Vaishya. Dharmik Vaishya is quite, because he is also scared of the Papa and Pun. We always have this Daiva Bhakti, Papa Bhiti, whereas it is the reverse in the West.
Say that, help me understand.
What in our culture, what we have is Papa Bhiti. You fear the sin, not the God. Whereas in the West, you fear the God, basically. God-fearing people.
Correct. We are not God-fearing.
No, we are not God-fearing. We are God-loving people. Right. But we are scared of the sins we commit.
Because of karmic action or whatever.
Because you believe in rebirth, someday, somewhere or the other, your karma will catch you back. So, whoever does that, okay. It is not even adharmic to get some interest for the money you lend.
Correct.
And you are helping him when he is in need and you are getting back in it. And the same Vaishya who is maligned for charging so much exorbitant interest rates is the one also built temples and indirectly helping the economy.
Correct.
So we never understood this cycle properly and applied blanket rules. As a result, we landed up here.
And imagine if free markets were allowed to access there and non-government interference and creating artificial NBFCs and banks. Then while they may also exist, the local Vaishya who's a local money lender at a high interest rate is also allowed to exist without government interference.
Of course.
The moment he is allowed to exist, free market economics or competitiveness will make him keep his interest rate low.
Even the borrower will go to the
whoever is offering the best price.
Less interest.
Wonderful. See what brainwashing all of us have been through, including
because we have not studied this properly, Rahul. I am not saying the entire discourse has always been happening how to make a particular policy successful instead of looking into whether that policy itself is good enough or not. We are in a democratic country, we are forced to make democracy successful instead of asking whether democracy by its nature is good or bad.